Let's go ahead and give shape 2 a try. And if you look at shape 2, it's just a big rectangular prism with 2 rectangular holes cut out of it. So let's start by building the big rectangle and then cut out the 2 holes. I'm going to go ahead and close out my data panel so I have more room to work. And I want to start a new sketch. And this time, instead of starting on my front view, I actually want to start on my top view. So I want to get my plane that's parallel to my top view on my view cube and select it. And if I did it right, I should be looking right at my top view. And if it's rotated sideways, make sure you rotate it so that top is looking right at you. You don't want top pointing up and down. You want to read top left to right before you start. And then let's grab our rectangle tool. And I'm going to make it coincident with my origin and drag it up. And what dimensions do I want to give this rectangle? Well, we're drawing from the top, and so this is our top face. It looks like it has a total depth of 1.75. If I go to my home view, you can see what I'm looking at here. This is my top view. So if I grab my dimensioning tool, from this edge right here to this back edge, it says that is 1.75. So let's type that in, 1.75, and hit enter on my keyboard. And then it says from this edge over here to this edge over here is 2.25. So let me go to my top view. So you can kind of practice seeing it from the top view versus the isometric. And I want to give this dimension 2.25 and hit enter on my keyboard. And then I can finish my sketch, go to my home view, and I want to extrude this fully constrained rectangle up. And how far does it extrude up? Well, 1.5 inches. And so I'll drag it up and type in 1.5 and hit OK. And so now we have this rectangular prism minus these 2 holes. So let's start with this hole right here. And this is just a rectangular hole cut out of our top face. We could cut it out of our front face instead, but it looks a little simpler from the top view. So I'm going to select that and go to Create New Sketch. And again, I want to make sure top is horizontal. I'm not reading it sideways before I start. And then I want to grab my rectangle tool. And I want to connect it to this edge right here. That's this edge down here. And I could automatically connect it by just clicking while my mouse is magnetized to that edge. But I'm going to go ahead and remind you of the collinear constraint by clicking and dragging in the middle of my square. And then find the constraint, collinear. And I'm going to tell these 2 lines to be collinear. Once again, if you just select that line when you draw the rectangle, it'll automatically make it collinear for you. But just in case you missed or realize after the fact, you can always just add the constraint after you build the rectangle. And let me go to my isometric view to kind of see what we're starting to sketch. Okay, we're sketching out this rectangle. We have 3 dimensions to give. So if I grab my dimension tool, I can start from this edge to this edge. That is 0.5. So let me click on this edge and this line and tell it to be 0.5 and hit enter on our keyboard. And I'll go to my home view to kind of show you, okay, that is where we got that dimension from. Okay, so what about from this edge to this edge? Well, that is 0.75. So from this line to this line, that is 0.75. If I go back to my top view to kind of look at it, we can kind of see how this is working. I go back to my isometric, and we got one more line. If we go find that edge in our fully dimensioned shape 2, we can see it is measuring 0.75. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on this edge to this edge and tell it to be 0.75 and hit enter on our keyboard. And now we have a fully constrained rectangle. So I hit finish sketch, go to my home view and hit extrude. And this hole cuts all the way through, so I don't need to type in a distance. I can just go to all and hit OK. And so we're almost done. We have one more extrusion to cut out of this shape. And we could cut it out of the front view, the side view, or the top view. It really doesn't matter which. They will all do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and cut it out of the front view. So let's select it and go to Create Sketch. And there's this rectangular hole cut out. So if I grab my rectangle tool, I can make sure it's coincident with that top right corner. So I want to make sure it's magnetized to the top right corner before I click and drag and click again. And we got to give this 2 more dimensions. And so what are these dimensions? I'm going to right click and hit cancel. Well, if I grab this dimension tool, I can see that from this bottom edge of this rectangle measured to the bottom of our shape, it is 0.5. So that's from this edge to the bottom of our shape is 0.5. Hit enter on our keyboard, and if I go to my home view, hopefully you can see where I get that dimension from. And I can see from the left side of this rectangle to this edge is 0.5. So that's from here to here is 0.5. And again, I'll go to my isometric view to kind of show you. It's going a different direction, both of these, I know. They're both coming forward here, and here it's going to the right, and here it's coming above. But that doesn't change the distance of these two edges, and that's what this is measuring. And this is measuring the distance between these two edges, and so is this. And so it is the same dimension, even though it's pointing a different direction. And we have a fully constrained sketch. So let's go ahead and finish it and hit extrude. And how deep does it extrude? And you might be tempted to think 0.75, but you would be wrong. It says the distance from the inside of this to this back edge is 0.75. Right now we're measuring the distance from the front to this edge, which it does not tell us that dimension directly. But we can figure it out using a little bit of math. We said earlier the entire depth was 1.75. So that's from this edge to this back edge back here is 1.75. And then we just said that from here to here is 0.75. And so what plus 0.75 is 1.75? Well, it's clearly 1 inch. And of course, we need to make sure we do type in a -1 so that it does go inwards, but it is 1 inch. If we hit OK, if this is 1 inch and this is 0.75, then the entire depth from the front all the way to the back is 1.75. And so hopefully that was just too easy, too obvious. Let's make sure we save this shape before we close it out. Let's go to shape 2, this time for real, and hit save. And make sure it's saved in your data panel, and there it is. And we are done with this shape.